Welcome back, friends. Tonight, we drift through a different kind of legend. Not the legend of courage or power, but the legend of memory itself. Of what it means to carry the weight of countless lifetimes while watching someone you care for forget again and again and again. In the stories we tell about heroes, we often focus on the one who wields the sword, the one who faces darkness with nothing but courage and a blade forged by gods. But tonight, we turn our attention to the other half of the legend, to the princess who stands beside that hero, not just as royalty, but as something far more essential and far more painful. As the keeper of memory in a cycle that demands forgetting. Link, throughout the ages, is bound to a peculiar fate. He arrives in each new age fresh, unburdened by the weight of previous battles. His spirit reincarnates, yes, but the memories do not follow. Each Link is, in essence, meeting the world for the first time. He doesn't remember the battles his predecessors fought, the friends they made, the sacrifices they witnessed. He is always beginning anew, like spring after a long winter, like morning light that doesn't recall the darkness it has replaced. But Zelda remembers, not always in the same way, not always with perfect clarity. But across the timelines, across the ages, there is a pattern that emerges when you look closely at the legends. Where Link forgets or never knew, Zelda carries forward. She bears witness. She holds the thread of continuity that the hero cannot grasp. And this burden, this gift of memory and wisdom, shapes not just who she is, but what she must sacrifice, again and again, for the sake of a world that often cannot remember what she has done. Tonight, we will walk through time itself. We will trace the pattern from its very beginning in the clouds above a world not yet called Hyrule, through the branching paths of shattered time, through drowned kingdoms and twilight realms, all the way to a future where a princess becomes a dragon for 10,000 years, holding a sword and a memory that refuses to die. We will see how, at every turn, Zelda's burden is not just to fight evil or to wield divine power, but to remember on behalf of the one who must forget. This is not a story of courage, though courage fills every moment. This is a story of wisdom, and wisdom, as we will see, is the heaviest burden of all. So settle in. Let the world outside fade away. Tonight belongs to memory, to sacrifice, and to the quiet heroism of the one who remembers when no one else can. The cycle begins. Skyward Sword and the first memories. Our story begins before Hyrule itself existed, before there were kingdoms to defend or triforces to seek. It begins in the sky, on islands of earth and stone that float among clouds like dreams themselves. In this time before time, the world below was ravaged by demons. A being called Demise rose from the earth, bringing with him an army of monsters and a hunger for divine power. The goddess Hylia, guardian of the Triforce and protector of the mortal realm, fought against this demon king with everything she possessed. But even a goddess can bleed. Even divine power has its limits. Hylia knew that Demise's seal would not hold forever. She knew that when he returned, she would not be strong enough to stop him a second time. So she made a choice that would echo through every age to follow. She gathered the surviving humans and sent them to live on floating islands in the sky, far above the reach of demons. She created the Master Sword, a blade that would be wielded not by divine hands, but by mortal ones. And then, knowing what must be done, she made the ultimate sacrifice. She gave up her divinity itself. Hylia chose to be reborn as a mortal, to shed the untouchable distance of godhood and become vulnerable, human, capable of wielding the Triforce that a goddess could never touch. This decision would set in motion the entire cycle of the legend. But more than that, it would establish a pattern that Zelda would follow for generations to come. the pattern of sacrifice, the pattern of bearing knowledge that others cannot share, the pattern of remembering what must not be forgotten. When Hylia was reborn, she became a girl named Zelda. Not a princess, not yet. Just a girl who lived on Skyloft with her friends, with dreams of flying on her loft wing, and a life that seemed, for a beautiful moment, uncomplicated. She was the daughter of the headmaster of the Knight Academy. She was Link's childhood friend, someone who laughed and joked, and lived with the lightness that comes from not yet knowing your destiny. But destiny has a way of finding those who are meant for it. After Zelda was captured by Girahim and dragged down to the surface world, something began to stir within her. An old woman, who was Impa in disguise, found her and spoke words that would change everything. She told Zelda of her true nature, that she was not just a girl from Skyloft, but the mortal reincarnation of the goddess Hylia herself. That sleeping within her was the memory of ages, the knowledge of what had been and what must come to pass. To awaken these memories, Zelda had to travel to sacred springs scattered across the land. At each spring, she bathed in holy waters, and piece by piece, the memories returned. Each spring she visited brought back more of Hylia's knowledge, more of the goddess's plan, more of the terrible burden that had been waiting for her since before she was born. Imagine that moment. Imagine being a girl who thought she understood who she was, only to discover that you carry within you the memories of a goddess. That your entire life has been preparation for a sacrifice you didn't even know you would have to make. That every friendship, every dream, every quiet moment of peace was borrowed time, because destiny was always waiting to collect what it was owed. As Zelda recovered her memories at the Spring of Faron Woods, at the volcano of Eldin, at each holy place, she began to understand the full scope of what Hylia had planned. Link, her dear friend Link, was the chosen hero, the reincarnation of the warrior who had fought alongside Hylia in the ancient past. But he wasn't ready yet. He needed time to grow stronger, to prove himself worthy of wielding the complete Triforce. And so Hylia, even in her plans from eons past, had prepared for this. Zelda learned that she would have to seal herself away in the past, placing herself in a crystal sleep that would maintain the seal on Demise while Link completed his journey. This knowledge came to her slowly, memory by memory, truth by truth. And with each revelation, the girl from Skyloft became something else. Not just Zelda, not just Hylia, but something caught between the two. Someone who remembered being divine, but could feel the ache of mortal fear in her chest. When she finally traveled through the Gate of Time with Impa, when she sealed herself in that crystal in the sealed temple, Zelda made a choice that Link would never fully understand. She chose to sleep for who knows how long, trapped in a state between life and death, holding back the darkness through sheer will and the fading remnants of divine power. All so that Link could have the time he needed. Also that the plan Hylia had set in motion thousands of years ago could finally reach its conclusion. And here we see the pattern establishing itself. Link journeyed forward, growing stronger, facing temples and monsters and trials. He forgot nothing because he had nothing to forget. Each challenge was new, each victory fresh. But Zelda lay in crystal, conscious in some dreamlike way, aware of the passage of time, aware of her purpose, unable to do anything but wait and remember and hope that Link would succeed. When Link finally defeated Demise, when the Demon King was absorbed into the Master Sword and sealed away, Zelda's soul was released. She woke from her crystal prison to find that everything had changed. Link was no longer the boy who had joked with her on Skyloft. He was the hero who had forged the ultimate blade and conquered an ancient evil. And she was no longer the girl who dreamed of flying. She was Hylia's chosen vessel, the keeper of divine memory, forever changed by what she had experienced in that crystal sleep. But Link had no way of knowing what she had endured. He had no framework to understand what it meant to carry the memories of a goddess, to have experienced the consciousness of crystal entombment, to have lain suspended between moments while the world moved forward without you. He could celebrate the victory. She had to carry the memory of the cost. At the end of Skyward Sword, Link and Zelda choose to remain on the surface world, to establish what would become the kingdom of Hyrule. It's portrayed as a hopeful ending, and in many ways it is, but it's also the beginning of the cycle, the beginning of a pattern where Zelda would carry burdens that Link could never fully comprehend, where her wisdom would mean remembering things he could forget, where her role would be to witness and to endure, while his would be to fight and to triumph. Demise's dying curse ensured that this pattern would repeat. His hatred would be reborn, he promised, manifesting again and again to torment the descendants of the goddess and the reincarnations of the hero. And in this curse, we see the fundamental asymmetry of the legend taking shape. Link's spirit would be reborn fresh each time, ready to face evil without the weight of past failures or the scars of previous battles. But Zelda, carrying the blood of the goddess, would be born into a legacy. She would be the inheritor of memory, whether she wanted it or not. In future ages, not every Zelda would be a direct reincarnation of Hylia. The connection would become more diffuse, more like inherited divinity than conscious rebirth. But the pattern would remain. Zelda would be the one who knew, who remembered, who carried forward the knowledge that Link, by the very nature of his role, could never hold on to. This first Zelda, the Zelda of Skyward Sword, set the template. She showed us what it would mean to be the wisdom to Link's courage, not just intelligence or magical power, but the terrible burden of remembering on behalf of the one who forgets, of witnessing what others cannot see, of carrying knowledge forward through time like a sacred trust that can never be set down. And as we move forward through the ages, through the branching timelines, and the countless incarnations of this eternal struggle, we will see this pattern repeat again and again, sometimes in obvious ways, sometimes in subtle ones. But always, always, Zelda remembers what Link forgets. Ocarina of Time. 7 years of stolen childhood. If Skyward Sword showed us the birth of the cycle, then Ocarina of Time shows us its purest, most heartbreaking expression. This is the story of 7 years. 7 years that Link never experienced. 7 years that Zelda had to witness alone. Our Link begins as a boy in Kokiri Forest, believing himself to be one of the eternal children, unaware that he is different. He is awakened by the fairy Navi, sent to him by the dying Deku tree, and thrust into a quest he barely understands. When he travels to Hyrule Castle and meets the young Princess Zelda, something passes between them. A recognition, a shared understanding that something terrible is coming. Princess Zelda, even as a child, has prophetic dreams. She sees visions of dark clouds rolling across Hyrule. She sees Ganondorf, the Gerudo king who has pledged his loyalty to her father, and she knows in her heart that he cannot be trusted. She is perhaps 10 years old, and already she bears the weight of knowledge that no one believes. Her father thinks she is being childish. The adults dismiss her fears. Only Link, this strange boy from the forest, seems to understand that her warnings are real. Together, they set a plan in motion. Link will gather the 3 spiritual stones needed to open the door of time. He will reach the Master Sword before Ganondorf can. They will protect the Triforce, and Hyrule will be saved. It's the kind of plan that children make, full of hope and conviction, blind to how badly things can go wrong. And things go so very wrong. When Link gathers the stones and opens the Temple of Time, when he approaches the Master Sword in its pedestal, he believes he is about to become the hero that Hyrule needs. He reaches for the blade. He pulls it free. And in that moment, as the sword recognizes him as the chosen hero, something unexpected happens. The blade finds him unworthy, not in spirit, but in body. He is too young. His hands are too small, his body not yet strong enough to wield the Master Sword properly. So the sword does what it was designed to do. It seals him away, places him in a kind of stasis, preserving him in the sacred realm while his body ages 7 years in what is, to him, a single instant. But for that instant to pass, 7 real years must unfold in the world outside. 7 years that Zelda has to live through alone. Imagine her perspective in those first moments after Link draws the sword. She doesn't know about the seal. She doesn't know that he's being preserved, that he will emerge 7 years older. All she knows is that Link has vanished, and in his absence, Ganondorf has followed him into the sacred realm. The plan has failed catastrophically. The gates are open. The Triforce is vulnerable. Ganondorf seizes his opportunity. He touches the Triforce, seeking to claim its full power, but because his heart is unbalanced, craving only power, the sacred relic splits into 3 pieces. He obtains the Triforce of power, becoming nearly invincible in an instant. Zelda receives the Triforce of wisdom, and in a final desperate moment, she flees Hyrule Castle with Impa as Ganondorf murders her father and takes the throne. Link is asleep. Zelda is running for her life, and 7 years of nightmare begin. She hides. She learns the ways of the Sheikah from Impa. She disguises herself not just with different clothing, but with a different identity entirely, becoming Sheik, concealing even her gender to throw off pursuit. While Link sleeps in crystal, Zelda witnesses the transformation of her kingdom into something unrecognizable. Ganondorf uses his newfound power to spread darkness across Hyrule. Castle Town, once vibrant and full of life, becomes overrun with Redeads, those nightmarish creatures that paralyze with their screams and feed on the living. The citizens flee to Kakariko village, huddling together in fear. The Gorons are imprisoned and prepared for feeding to Volvagia, a dragon resurrected by Ganondorf's dark magic. The Zoras freeze beneath a curse of ice, their beloved princess trapped inside a water temple. The Kokiri forest is invaded by monsters. Everything Link knew, everything Zelda tried to protect, falls to ruin, and she watches it all happen. As Sheik, she moves through the shadows of this fallen kingdom, always one step ahead of Ganondorf's soldiers, always searching for a way to make things right. She begins to understand the truth about the sages, about the Master Sword, about what will be required to defeat Ganondorf. She waits for Link to wake, not knowing when or if he will. 7 years is a long time when you're alone. Long enough to see children grow into adults who don't remember what peace felt like. Long enough to watch Ganondorf cement his power, to see him become so confident in his rule that he treats Hyrule like a plaything. Long enough for hope to become a fading ember that you have to protect with everything you have left. When Link finally wakes, 7 years have passed in the outside world, but no time at all for him. He pulls his hand back from the Master Sword and finds himself in the body of a young man. Rauru, the Sage of Light, explains what happened. Link was too young to be the hero of time, so he was sealed away until his body could catch up to his destiny. 7 years gone in what felt like a single moment. But they weren't gone for Zelda. As Sheik, she watches Link emerge into this ruined world. She sees his confusion, his horror at what has become of the places he knew, and she has to guide him without revealing who she truly is. She teaches him songs on the ocarina. She gives him cryptic advice. She points him toward the temples where the sages sleep, waiting to be awakened. She helps him without being able to tell him the truth, that she has been waiting for him for 7 years, that she has witnessed every moment of Hyrule's fall, that she carries the guilt of their shared failure like a stone in her chest. Think about what that means. She knows him as the boy she conspired with, but she has grown up. She has experienced war and loss and the weight of impossible responsibility. When she sees him, she sees someone who is physically an adult, but who still has the memories and emotional framework of a 10-year-old boy. He has missed 7 years of growth, of learning, of becoming. He has the body of an adult warrior, but the heart of the child he was when he touched the sword. And she can't explain any of this to him while wearing Sheik's disguise. She can only watch him piece together what happened, watch him shoulder the blame for a catastrophe he couldn't possibly have prevented, watch him drive himself forward with a guilt that mirrors her own. When they finally reunite as adults, when all the sages are awakened and Sheik reveals herself as Zelda in the Temple of Time, there is so much that cannot be said. She tells him she's sorry, that she feels responsible for everything that has happened. But how can she convey 7 years of waiting, 7 years of watching the kingdom die, 7 years of carrying secrets and memories that she bore alone? Link has his own trauma. He has learned that he is not really a Kokiri, that he never belonged to the forest the way he thought. He has discovered that his actions led to Ganondorf's rise. He has fought through temples filled with monsters, awakening friends as sages, only to learn that becoming a sage means they can never return to their old lives. He has grown up the hard way, through battle and loss. But his 7 years of trauma are combat trauma, hero's trauma. They are compressed into a journey that, for all its difficulty, has a clear purpose and a path forward. Zelda's 7 years are different. They are the trauma of helplessness, of watching and being unable to act, of knowing that she could have done something different, made a different choice, trusted Link more or less, or trusted herself more, or warned people more effectively. 7 years is long enough to replay every mistake 1,000 times, long enough for guilt to become a constant companion, long enough to forget what it felt like to be a child who dreamed that she could save the world simply by being clever enough. And then, after all of that, after everything she has endured and witnessed, she is captured. Ganondorf takes her prisoner and uses her as bait to draw Link into Ganon's tower. She becomes, in the final act, exactly what she feared most, the princess who needs rescuing. Not because she is weak, but because Ganondorf has all the power and she has exhausted every other option. When Link defeats Ganondorf and the sages seal him in the corrupted sacred realm, when victory finally comes, Zelda is granted one more burden. She holds the Ocarina of Time, and with it, she has the power to send Link back. Back to before he drew the Master Sword. Back to his childhood. She can give him the one thing she never had, the chance to reclaim those 7 stolen years. But this gift comes with a cost. If she sends him back, the timeline will split. In the future she remains in, Link will vanish, having never existed as the adult hero who saved Hyrule. His victory will become a story with no witness except her and the sages. And in the past he returns to, he will carry the memories of the future with him, but no proof, no way to make anyone believe what he knows. She sends him back anyway, because that's what Zelda does. She bears the cost so that Link doesn't have to. In the adult timeline, the timeline she remains in, Link is simply gone one day. The hero who saved them vanished like morning mist. The kingdom remembers him, but he doesn't exist in their world anymore. Zelda is left to rebuild, to try to create a better future, knowing that the person who made that future possible can never be part of it. In the child timeline, Link returns to his 10-year-old body with the memories of a 17-year-old hero. He remembers Zelda as she was 7 years older. He remembers the ruined kingdom. He remembers fighting alongside the sages. He tries to warn people about Ganondorf, and some believe him. The timeline shifts. Ganondorf is arrested and eventually banished to the Twilight Realm. Hyrule avoids the catastrophe, but this comes at a cost too. Link becomes a man caught between times. He has memories no one else shares. He is traumatized by events that never happened in this timeline. And eventually, in Twilight Princess, we learn that he grew old filled with regrets, bitter about not being able to pass on his skills to future generations, so haunted by his experiences that his spirit could not rest even in death. He became the hero's shade, a golden wolf-like ghost, waiting centuries for another hero to teach. And what of Zelda in that child timeline? She is the young princess who receives a warning from a boy who knows impossible things. She believes him because something in his eyes tells her that his story is true. But she will never know what it cost him to gain that knowledge. She will never experience the 7 years that made Sheik necessary. She will never have to witness her kingdom's slow death. In avoiding that timeline's catastrophe, she is spared the memories that defined her in the adult timeline. But somewhere, in another timeline that branches off from their failure, there exists a world where Ganondorf wins, where the hero of time falls in battle and Hyrule is overrun completely. In that timeline, Zelda and the sages seal Ganondorf in the sacred realm at terrible cost, and the kingdom enters a dark age from which it will take generations to recover. This becomes the fallen hero timeline, the darkest of the 3 paths, and even there, it is the Zeldas of future generations who maintain the seals, who pass down the knowledge, who remember what must not be forgotten. 3 timelines, 3 versions of Zelda, each carrying different memories, different scars. But the pattern holds true in all of them. Zelda remembers what Link cannot. In the adult timeline, she remembers a hero who no longer exists. In the child timeline, she believes a boy who remembers a future that never was. In the fallen timeline, she inherits the memory of defeat and must pass on the knowledge of how to prevent it from happening again. Ocarina of Time is the crux of the legend, the moment when everything fractures. And at the center of that fracture is Zelda, holding memories that span timelines, carrying burdens that multiply with each split reality, always remembering while Link, in one form or another, forgets or was never there or never knew. 7 years. Such a small number, but sometimes 7 years is everything. The split timelines. 3 Zeldas, 3 burdens. The fracturing of time at the end of Ocarina of Time creates something unprecedented in the legend. Where once there was a single thread of continuity, now there are 3 separate timelines, each with its own Hyrule, its own incarnations of Link and Zelda, its own cycle of darkness and heroism. And in each timeline, we see the pattern of memory and forgetting play out in different ways. In the adult timeline, the one where Link vanishes after defeating Ganondorf, Hyrule enters an age of prosperity. Zelda and the sages work to rebuild the kingdom, to restore what was lost during Ganondorf's reign. They succeed remarkably well. Hyrule thrives. Generations pass in relative peace. But peace never lasts forever in this legend. Centuries later, the seal on Ganondorf begins to weaken. The people of Hyrule pray for the hero of time to return and save them once again, just as he did in the ancient stories. They pray and pray, their faith absolute, their hope unshakable. The hero will come. He always comes. That's what the legends promise. But the hero doesn't come, because Link doesn't exist in this timeline anymore. Zelda sent him back to his own time, and he can never return to this one. The hero of time is gone, and no reincarnation has appeared to take his place. Without a hero, the people are helpless. The royal family makes the only choice they can. They call upon the gods themselves, and the gods respond in the most devastating way imaginable. They flood the world. The goddesses raise the waters of the ocean to cover Hyrule entirely, sealing Ganondorf beneath the waves along with everything else. The people are given a choice: ascend to the mountaintops, which will become islands in this new world, or stay behind and face the waters. Most flee upward. The kingdom of Hyrule drowns, frozen in time beneath an ocean, preserved but unreachable. In this flooded world, memory becomes complicated. The legends of old Hyrule persist, but they transform over time. People remember that there was once a kingdom beneath the waves. They remember that a hero existed once, wearing green and wielding a sword. But the details blur. The truth becomes myth, and myth becomes fairy tale. Within a few generations, most people know only that there are monsters in the sea and that the old world is gone forever. Into this world, Zelda is reborn not as a princess, but as Tetra, a pirate captain who has never heard her true name. Her mother passed down a piece of the Triforce of Wisdom disguised as a pendant, but she doesn't know what it is. She doesn't remember the kingdom that drowned. She has no connection to her divine heritage. She is, for the first time in ages, free from the burden of memory. And it is King Daphnes, the last king of Hyrule, who carries that burden instead. King Daphnes is a peculiar figure in the legend. He died when Hyrule was flooded, but his spirit persisted, bound to the ruined kingdom beneath the waves. For hundreds of years he waited, hoping that the prophecy would come true, that the hero would return and Hyrule could be restored. He waited so long that waiting became his entire existence. He forgot how to imagine anything other than restoration. He became a ghost clinging to memory, unable to let go. When a new Link appears, when the boy from Outset Island begins a quest to rescue his sister, Daphne sees an opportunity. He transforms himself into a boat, the king of red lions, and guides this Link through the early stages of his journey. He doesn't reveal the full truth immediately. He lets Link believe he is simply rescuing his sister. But all along, Daphnes is steering him toward a larger destiny, toward the recovery of the Master Sword, toward the restoration of Hyrule itself. And when he discovers Tetra, when he realizes she is the heir to the throne, he makes a choice that reveals both his nobility and his tragic flaw. He awakens her as Princess Zelda, revealing her true identity and calling upon her to take her place in the restoration of the kingdom. For Tetra, this awakening is a violation. She is happy as a pirate. She has a crew who loves her, adventures that excite her, a life that belongs to her. But suddenly, she is told that none of that matters because she is actually a princess, because she carries the bloodline of Hylia, because there is a kingdom beneath the waves that needs her. She is dressed in royal clothing, hidden away in Hyrule Castle for her protection, and told to wait while Link goes on the final stages of his quest. She goes from being the action-focused captain of a pirate ship to being the passive princess who must be protected. From someone who made her own choices to someone whose choices are made for her by the weight of memory and destiny that she didn't even know existed. And here we see memory working in a different way. King Daphnes remembers old Hyrule so completely that he cannot see the present clearly. His memories bind him. They tell him that Zelda must be awakened, that the kingdom must be restored, that the old ways are the only ways. He is so focused on reclaiming what was lost that he cannot imagine that maybe, just maybe, what was lost should stay lost. Link, meanwhile, has no connection to any of this history. He is not trying to restore Hyrule. He is trying to save his sister. His motivations are pure and simple, and have nothing to do with kingdoms or prophecies or the weight of ages. He is the hero who came not because destiny called, but because he loved his sister and refused to abandon her. In the absence of the legendary hero, an ordinary boy became extraordinary through sheer determination. Throughout Wind Waker's story, Zelda is stuck. She is trapped in the tower, unable to participate, while Link adventures across the Great Sea. She has been given memories and knowledge she didn't ask for, thrust into an identity she didn't choose, and told that this is what she must be. And she accepts it, because that is what Zelda always does. She bears the burden. She accepts the role. She sacrifices her own desires for the sake of the greater good. But King Daphnes has been carrying the memory of Hyrule for so long that it has poisoned him. When he and Link and Zelda finally confront Ganondorf in the flooded castle, when the three pieces of the Triforce come together, and the wish is ready to be granted, Ganondorf reaches for it first. He is about to wish for the restoration of his power, for Hyrule to rise from the waves so he can rule it at last. But King Daphnes moves faster. He touches the Triforce first, and his wish surprises everyone, especially himself. He wishes for Hyrule to be destroyed, completely and utterly washed away. He wishes for the world above the waves to continue, for Link and Zelda to have a future unbound by the past, for the old kingdom to finally be allowed to die. It is perhaps the most shocking moment in any Zelda game. The king who has clung to memory for centuries, who has been defined entirely by his desire to restore what was lost, chooses to let it all go. He realizes in that final moment that he has become like Ganondorf, trapped by obsession with a past that cannot and should not be reclaimed. And so he releases his grip on memory, releases his grip on Hyrule itself, and uses his final wish to ensure that the future belongs to the children, not to the ghosts of the past. Zelda begs him to come with them, to escape the flooding castle and live in the world above. But he refuses. He has been dead for hundreds of years, kept alive only by his refusal to let Hyrule go. Now that he has released it, there is nothing left for him. He drowns with the kingdom he loved, content at last, finally able to rest. And Zelda becomes Tetra again. Not a princess now, but a pirate captain who will sail to new lands and establish a new kingdom that will be built on hope rather than on the ruins of the old world. She is freed from the burden of memory, at least for a while. King Daphnes carried it for her, and in dying, he released her from its weight. But the memory doesn't vanish. It becomes legend. The legend of the hero of winds, and the princess who was once a pirate, and the kingdom that sank beneath the waves. And that legend will one day become a burden for someone else to carry. In the child timeline, where young Link returned to warn Zelda about Ganondorf, the story unfolds differently. Ganondorf is arrested and tried for his crimes, though few truly understand the crimes he hasn't yet committed. He is found guilty and sentenced to execution, but at the last moment, the Triforce of Power awakens within him, granting him divine protection that the executioners cannot overcome. Unable to kill him, the sages banish him instead to the Twilight Realm, a shadow world created long ago as a prison for ancient sorcerers. In this timeline, Hyrule avoids the apocalypse. The kingdom thrives. Link leaves on a journey to find Navi and vanishes from history. And eventually, he becomes the hero's shade, a spirit filled with regrets, waiting to pass on his skills to a worthy successor. That successor arrives generations later in Twilight Princess. A new Link, a farmhand from Orden Village, finds himself transformed into a wolf and drawn into a conflict he doesn't understand. The Twilight Realm has invaded Hyrule, covering the land in a strange half-light that turns people into spirits, and a creature named Midna uses him to pursue her own agenda, which she keeps carefully hidden. This timeline's Zelda faces a different burden. When Zant, the false king of the Twilight Realm, invaded Hyrule with his shadow beasts, she was faced with an impossible choice. She could fight, watching her soldiers and her people die in a battle they could not win. Or she could surrender, allowing Zant to cover the kingdom in twilight, but preserving the lives of her people. She chose surrender, and the guilt of that choice weighs on her heavily. When Link first meets her, she is imprisoned in a tower in her own castle, cloaked in dark robes, her face hidden. She is a prisoner who accepted her chains to save others, and the weight of that sacrifice has nearly crushed her. She holds the Triforce of Wisdom, which protected her from being transformed into a spirit like her subjects, but wisdom feels like cold comfort when everyone around her suffers. This Zelda remembers her people. She remembers each face of each guard who died protecting her. She remembers the moment she realized that fighting was futile, that her kingdom was doomed, that the only way to save anyone was to give up. And she carries that memory like a brand, a constant reminder of her failure. When Midna is dying, poisoned by the light that is lethal to creatures of Twilight, Link brings her to Zelda in desperation. Midna admits who she truly is, the rightful princess of the Twilight Realm, cursed by Zant into an imp-like form. She explains that she needs the light to survive, but light is the one thing that can kill her now. Zelda understands immediately what must be done. Without hesitation, without asking for permission, she transfers her own light, her own life force, into Midna. She sacrifices herself so that the Twilight Princess can live, and Midna protests, begging her not to do it, but Zelda does it anyway with a peaceful smile on her face, because that is what she does. She bears the burden. She makes the sacrifice. She remembers what matters even when it costs her everything. For the rest of the game, Zelda is gone. Her body becomes a vessel for Ganondorf when he returns. She is possessed, used as a puppet, forced to fight against Link. She has no agency, no voice, no presence. She exists only as memory, as the princess who sacrificed herself, as the ruler who chose peace over victory, as the woman who gave up her life to save someone she barely knew because it was the right thing to do. When Ganondorf is finally defeated and Zelda is restored, she has almost nothing to say. She has been absent for so much of the adventure. She doesn't know what Link went through. She doesn't know how Midna grew and changed. She is, in a very real sense, out of sync with the story, holding memories of events she didn't witness, gaps in her understanding of what happened while she was gone. And, yet, she stands with Link and Midna as the Twilight Princess destroys the Mirror of Twilight, severing the connection between the two realms forever. She bears witness to that final goodbye, to Midna's tear falling as she breaks the mirror, to the understanding that this necessary sacrifice means Link will never see Midna again. In the child timeline, Zelda remembers the cost of surrender. She remembers what it means to give up everything and hope that someone else can succeed where you failed. She is the keeper of a different kind of memory, the memory of failure, of sacrifice, of watching from the sidelines as others save the world you couldn't protect. And in the fallen timeline, where the hero of time died in battle against Ganondorf, the burden of memory becomes a legacy passed down through blood. In this darkest timeline, Zelda and the Seven Sages manage to seal Ganondorf in the Sacred Realm, but at terrible cost. Hyrule is devastated. The kingdom never fully recovers. Generations later, in A Link to the Past, a new Zelda is born into a kingdom that is fighting a losing battle against Ganon's forces. She sends out a telepathic call for help, a desperate plea that reaches Link in his dreams. She doesn't know this Link. She has no connection to him, but she remembers, through the stories passed down, what heroes can do. She remembers that there is always hope, even when the darkness seems absolute. This pattern continues through the Fallen timeline. Each Zelda inherits the memory of the imprisoning war, of the hero of time's failure, of the need to remain vigilant because evil can never be completely destroyed. They are custodians of a tragic history, keepers of a memory that teaches that even heroes can fall. 3 timelines, 3 different ways that memory shapes Zelda's role. In the adult timeline, she is freed from the past's burden by King Daphne's final wish, able to sail toward a future unburdened by what was. In the child timeline, she carries the memory of necessary surrender, of sacrifice that came too late, of watching from imprisonment as others fight the battles she cannot. In the Fallen timeline, she inherits the memory of defeat, passing it down through generations as a warning and a hope that next time the outcome might be different. But in all 3 timelines, one truth remains constant. Link forgets or never knew, while Zelda remembers. Wind Waker and the Drowned Memories. We touched on Wind Waker in the previous section, but this game deserves a deeper examination because it presents perhaps the most interesting meditation on memory in the entire series. This is a world where the past has been literally drowned, where an entire civilization lies preserved beneath the ocean, where memory has become disconnected from lived experience. When we first meet Tetra, she is everything a Zelda isn't supposed to be. She's brash, confident, aggressive. She commands a crew of pirates who are all older than her, and they follow her not out of duty, but out of genuine respect. She has earned her position through competence and force of will. She doesn't know anything about Hyrule. She doesn't know about the Triforce. She doesn't even know her real name. For the first time in the legend, we have a Zelda who is free. She wasn't raised with the burden of royal expectations. No one taught her about her divine heritage. No tutors told her about the cycle of darkness and light. She simply lived her life, became strong in her own way, made her own choices. The past was truly past for her, irrelevant, gone. And she is happy, genuinely, fully happy. She loves her life on the sea. She loves adventure and danger and the freedom that comes from not being bound to anything. When Link first asks for her help, she doesn't see a fellow player in an ancient drama. She sees a kid who needs assistance, and she helps him because she can, because it seems like the right thing to do, because she's curious about where this strange adventure might lead. But that freedom cannot last, not in this legend. When King Daphne reveals Tetra's true identity, when he combines her necklace with his piece of the Triforce of Wisdom and awakens her as Princess Zelda, we see memory imposed from outside. She didn't choose to remember. She didn't want this knowledge. But the past reclaims her anyway, transforming her from Tetra the pirate to Zelda the princess in a single moment. And with that transformation comes a cascade of new expectations, new limitations, new burdens. She is immediately hidden away in Hyrule Castle, told it's for her protection. She must stay there while Link continues the quest. She went from being an active participant to being a passive figure in someone else's story. From the person making decisions to the person being protected. From Tetra to Zelda. And what does this transformation give her? Memories she never lived. Knowledge about a kingdom she never knew. A heritage that feels like a cage. King Daphne's represents the danger of holding memory too tightly. He has spent centuries clinging to his memories of old Hyrule, unable to let go, unable to imagine a future that doesn't involve restoring what was lost. His entire existence became about remembering, and that remembering transformed him from a man into a monument, from a living being into a ghost of the past. He looks at Tetra and sees the heir to his throne. He doesn't see the person she actually is. He sees the role she must fill, the destiny she must accept. His memories of how things should be blind him to how things are. And in Awakening Zelda, he almost repeats the mistake that led to Hyrule's downfall in the first place, trying to force the present to conform to the shape of the past. Throughout Wind Waker, we see the tension between these two approaches to memory. Ganondorf also clings to the past. When you face him in his tower, he speaks longingly about the winds of the Gerudo Desert, about the harsh beauty of his homeland. He invaded Hyrule centuries ago because the Gerudo lands were unforgiving, and he wanted something better for his people. But over time, that desire transformed into obsession. He stopped seeing Hyrule as it was and started seeing only his memory of what it meant. Power, comfort, victory. Like King Daphne's, Ganondorf became trapped by his own memories. He couldn't let go of what he had lost, couldn't accept that the world had moved on. Even drowned beneath the ocean, sealed away for generations, his obsession persisted. When he finally breaks free, his first thought is still about reclaiming the kingdom that doesn't exist anymore, about rebuilding old Hyrule, about turning back the clock to a time when he was victorious. Link, by contrast, has no connection to any of this history. He doesn't care about old Hyrule. He's never heard of the Triforce. He doesn't know about ancient legends or prophecies. He just wants to save his sister, Hyrule, who was kidnapped by the Helmarok king. That's it. That's his entire motivation. No destiny, no heritage, no burden of memory. Just love for his sister and the courage to act on that love. And this makes him, paradoxically, the perfect hero for this age. Because he is not trying to restore the past, he is free to create a future. When the final confrontation comes, when the three pieces of the Triforce reunite in the flooded castle, King Daphnes makes the most important choice of his long existence. He lets go. He releases his grip on the memory of Hyrule and wishes instead for the kingdom to be washed away completely, for the waters to rise further, for the past to be sealed away forever so that Link and Zelda can have a future that belongs to them. It's a stunning moment because it represents the triumph of the present over the past. Memory, which has been portrayed as sacred throughout the entire legend, is here revealed to be potentially poisonous. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is forget. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is release your grip on what you remember and trust the future to people who aren't bound by your memories. When Zelda begs him to come with them, to escape and live in the world above, she is offering him a chance to exist beyond his memories. But he understands that he cannot take it. He is his memories now. Without old Hyrule to remember, he has no reason to persist. So he stays, and he drowns, and in drowning, he finally finds peace. Tetra returns after this. Not Zelda. Tetra. She puts aside the royal dress and takes up her pirate clothes again. She reclaims her name, her identity, her life. The burden of being Zelda is lifted from her, and she is free to sail toward a horizon unbound by the weight of ancient duties. In Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, the sequels to Wind Waker, we see Tetra's descendants establishing New Hyrule, a kingdom built not on the foundation of the drowned world, but on something new. The past is honored, but not worshipped. Memory serves as a guide rather than a chain. This is what makes the Wind Waker timeline so fascinating from the perspective of memory. It is the one timeline where Zelda is offered the chance to forget, to be free from the burden of remembering, and she takes it. She becomes Tetra again and sails away. And while future generations will eventually establish a new kingdom and new princesses will bear the name Zelda, for this brief shining moment, there is a Zelda who was allowed to forget. But even that freedom came at a cost. King Daphnes had to remember so completely, so totally that it destroyed him. He had to carry the full weight of memory so that Tetra could be free. His sacrifice was not courage or power, but wisdom turned inward, used to recognize that his own memories were chains, and that the greatest gift he could give the future was to release it from the past. In the flooded kingdom of Hyrule, memory literally weighs you down. The deeper you go beneath the waves, the more you are surrounded by the preserved past, by temples and castles and villages frozen in time. And when you descend to the deepest point, to the throne room where King Daphnes has waited for centuries, you find a man who has been drowning in memory, slowly crushed by the weight of water and time and knowledge of what was lost. His final wish is not for revenge or restoration, but for release. For the waters to rise one final time and cover even the memory of what was. To let the past be truly past. And in that act, he shows what wisdom really means. Not just remembering, but knowing when to forget. Not just holding on to knowledge, but understanding when that knowledge becomes a burden that must be released. Not just being the keeper of memory, but being wise enough to know when memory has become a prison rather than a guide. Wind Waker is the game that asks, what if memory is not always a gift? What if the burden of wisdom is not that you must remember, but that you must choose what to remember and what to release? What if the truest act of wisdom is knowing when to let the past drown so that the future can breathe? Tetra sails away toward new lands, free from the weight of a kingdom beneath the waves. And somewhere in that act, we see a different kind of heroism. Not the courage of Link or the power of Ganondorf, but the wisdom of knowing when to be Zelda and when to be Tetra. The wisdom of living in the present while honoring but not being bound by the past. Memory, in this timeline, is finally balanced. Not forgotten entirely, but given its proper place. A story to remember, not a destiny to fulfill. Twilight Princess, carrying the weight of kingdoms. Twilight Princess presents us with perhaps the darkest and most mature Zelda in the series, and fittingly, her burden is the heaviest. This is a Zelda who rules alone, who faces invasion without allies, who makes impossible choices and then has to live with them. This is a Zelda who remembers, her failure with perfect clarity. When we first encounter her, she is imprisoned in a tower in her own castle, cloaked in black robes that hide her identity and her grief. The kingdom of Hyrule has been covered in twilight by Zant, the false king of the Twilight Realm, and her people have been transformed into spirits, unable to interact with the physical world. She holds the Triforce of Wisdom, which protected her from this transformation, but wisdom is a cold comfort when you are the only one left aware of what has been lost. Before the invasion, Zelda was preparing for her coronation as queen. She was young, perhaps too young, but ready to accept the responsibilities of the crown. Then Zant arrived with his shadow beasts and his twilight curse, and in a matter of days, her world collapsed. She faced a choice that no ruler should have to make. She could fight, throwing everything Hyrule had against this invader, watching her soldiers die in battle, seeing her kingdom torn apart by war. Or she could surrender, allowing Zant to cover the land in twilight, but preserving the lives of her people, trusting that somehow, someday, a way to reverse this curse would present itself. She chose surrender, and every moment since that choice, she has been living with its consequences. When Link first meets her as a wolf, when Midna brings him to the tower where Zelda is held, we see a woman defined by mourning. She has hidden her face because she cannot bear to be recognized. She has cloaked herself in darkness because it feels more honest than pretending to be the Princess of Light. She speaks to Link and Midna with a kind of distant sorrow, giving them information but expecting nothing. Hope is not something she allows herself anymore. This Zelda has memories that burn. She remembers every face of every guard who died defending her. She remembers the exact moment when she realized that fighting was futile, that they would lose, that her choices had narrowed to surrender or annihilation. She remembers making that choice and seeing the relief on her soldiers' faces mixed with their shame. They knew she was right, but it hurt them to know she was right. And then she remembers the twilight descending, covering her kingdom, transforming her people into ghosts, leaving her alone in a castle that had become a tomb. She remembers all of this, and she carries it like a weight that grows heavier with each passing day. Because unlike the other timelines, unlike the other Zeldas, she cannot act. She cannot quest or adventure or work toward redemption. She can only wait, only hope that someone, anyone, will come who can do what she failed to do. When Link and Midna arrive at her tower after Midna has been poisoned by light, Zelda understands immediately what is needed. Midna is dying. She is a creature of twilight, and the light that should heal is instead burning her alive. She needs the light to survive, but light will kill her. It's an impossible situation, a paradox that seems to have no solution. Except there is a solution. Zelda herself carries light. The Triforce of Wisdom protects her, grants her power, keeps her anchored in the light world. If she gives that light to Midna, Midna will survive, and Zelda will cease to exist. Midna protests. She actually begs Zelda not to do it, which is remarkable because Midna doesn't beg. She is proud and fierce, and has spent most of the game manipulating Link for her own purposes. But in this moment, confronted with Zelda's calm willingness to die for her, Midna's facade cracks. She doesn't want this. She didn't ask for this. She came seeking help, not sacrifice. But Zelda does it anyway. With a serene smile, with gentle words, she places her hands on Midna and transfers her light. She fades away, vanishing like morning mist, leaving only her crown behind. Think about what this means. Zelda has spent weeks, perhaps months, imprisoned and helpless, carrying the memory of her surrender, living with the guilt of her failure. And then, in one moment, she is given a chance to actually do something, to save someone, to matter. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't negotiate. She doesn't ask for promises or reassurances. She simply acts, because that is what Zelda does. She bears the burden so that others don't have to. And for the rest of the game, she is gone. Link and Midna go on to awaken the Master Sword, to restore the Mirror of Twilight, to learn the full truth about Zant and the ancient conflict between light and shadow. They adventure through temples and face guardians, and slowly build toward the final confrontation with evil. And Zelda misses all of it. She doesn't get to participate in her own kingdom's salvation. She doesn't get to fight alongside Link. She doesn't get to learn and grow and change the way Link does. She makes her sacrifice early, and then she becomes a memory, a ghost story, a lingering sadness that follows Link and Midna through their quest. When Ganondorf possesses her body in the final act, turning her into a puppet that Link must fight, it's a violation of the worst kind. She has already given everything. She has already sacrificed herself completely. And now her body, her image, her face is being used as a weapon against the hero she tried to help. She is there but not present, possessed but not conscious, forced to participate in evil without any agency or awareness. When Link finally defeats the possessed Zelda, and Midna uses the fused shadows to purge Ganondorf's influence, when Zelda is restored to her own body, we might expect relief or joy or triumph. But Twilight Princess doesn't give us that. Zelda returns quietly, with very little fanfare, and she has nothing to say about what she experienced. She doesn't remember the possession. She has gaps in her memory where her own adventure should be. She stands with Link and Midna as they face Ganondorf one final time. She provides light arrows to help Link in the horseback battle. She watches from Epona's back, unable to help directly, as Link and Ganondorf duel with swords in a final test of skill and will. She is present but peripheral, a witness to a climax she only partially understands. And when it's over, when Ganondorf falls with the Master Sword through his chest, when the evil is finally defeated, Zelda can only bow her head and hope that his spirit finds peace. She doesn't celebrate. She doesn't rejoice. She mourns, even for her enemy, because that is what bearing the Triforce of Wisdom means. Understanding the full tragedy of everything that has happened. Seeing not just that evil has been defeated, but that evil arose from pain, and that pain leaves scars on everyone, even the victors. In the final scene, Link and Zelda stand with Midna at the Mirror of Twilight, ready to say goodbye. Midna has been restored to her true form, tall and beautiful and regal, the curse broken at last. But she knows she cannot stay. The Twilight Realm needs its princess, and the connection between worlds has brought nothing but pain. So Midna shatters the mirror. She uses her power as the true ruler of the Twilight Realm to destroy the portal, severing the connection permanently. And as she does so, a single tear falls from her eye, the tear of someone who has found friends but must leave them forever, someone who has known love but must choose duty, someone who has changed but cannot stay to become the person those changes have made her. Zelda witnesses this. She sees Link's heartbreak. She understands what this parting means, and she carries the memory of it, the knowledge that sometimes the right choice is still a devastating choice, that sometimes saving the world means losing the people who helped you save it. This Zelda, more than perhaps any other, understands the weight of necessary sacrifice. She understands what it means to make the right choice and still live with regret. She remembers her surrender not as a strategic victory, but as a personal defeat, and nothing that happens after can quite erase that memory. She gave up her life to save Midna, and while she was restored, she still lived through the experience of dying, of fading away, of choosing not to exist anymore. These memories shape who she becomes. The Zelda who greets the sunrise at the end of Twilight Princess is not the naive girl preparing for coronation at the beginning. She has been tested in ways that Link cannot understand, because Link's challenges were external and hers were internal. He fought monsters and solved puzzles. She fought with her own conscience and solved the impossible problem of how to rule when ruling means accepting that you cannot save everyone. Midna serves as an interesting parallel to Zelda in this game. Both are princesses. Both had their kingdoms stolen. Both are cursed and trapped. But Midna gets to go on the adventure. Midna gets to grow and change and fight and make choices. She starts out selfish and manipulative and slowly learns to care about others, learns to value Link and Zelda, learns that there are things more important than her own kingdom. Zelda makes her sacrifice early and then watches from the sidelines or from non-existence as Midna has the adventure that should have been hers. And here we see the pattern once more. Link forgets. He doesn't remember the timeline where he fought Ganondorf as an adult, doesn't carry the memories of the hero of time. He is fresh to his role, learning as he goes, his trauma only what he experiences directly. Midna changes through experience, growing from selfish to noble through the choices she makes on her journey. But Zelda remembers. She remembers her failure. She remembers her choice. She remembers dying for Midna. She remembers standing by helplessly while others fought her battles. And she will carry those memories forward, will think about them late at night, will wonder if she should have fought instead of surrendering, will replay that impossible choice in her mind over and over, because that is what wisdom means. Not just knowing, but remembering. Not just understanding, but carrying the weight of understanding with you always. Being the one who cannot forget, even when forgetting would be a mercy. Breath of the Wild, 100 years of remembering. If Twilight Princess showed us Zelda bearing the burden of immediate memory, Breath of the Wild extends that burden across a century. 100 years, not of sleep or crystal stasis, but of conscious awareness, holding back darkness through sheer will, while the world outside slowly forgets that she exists. This Zelda begins her story with a different kind of pain, the pain of inadequacy. She is the heir to a legendary power, the princess who should wield the sealing ability that has been passed down through the royal family since ancient times. But no matter how hard she tries, no matter how much she prays at sacred springs, the power does not awaken within her. She goes to the spring of power. Nothing. She goes to the spring of courage. Nothing. She prays and fasts and pushes herself to exhaustion, but the divine sealing power remains dormant. And all the while, the prophecy draws closer. Calamity Ganon is awakening. The kingdom is preparing for war. They have excavated ancient guardians and divine beasts from 10,000 years ago, technological marvels left by a civilization that successfully defeated Ganon's previous incarnation. They have chosen champions to pilot the divine beasts, Mipha the Zora, Daruk the Goron, Revali the Rito, and Urbosa the Gerudo. And they have chosen Link, a young knight who barely speaks, to be Zelda's appointed protector. Link, in the memories we recover, is completely devoted to his duty. He follows Zelda everywhere, silent and watchful, guarding her with the Master Sword on his back. But Zelda doesn't want a guard. She wants to be left alone to do her research, to study the ancient Sheikah, technology, to find a scientific solution to a problem that everyone insists must be solved through prayer. She resents him. Every time she looks at Link, she sees someone who has already found his destiny. He pulled the Master Sword from its pedestal at age 12, proving himself the chosen hero without effort, without doubt. And she sees her own failure reflected in his success. If he can be the hero so easily, why can't she be the princess with power? The memories we collect in Breath of the Wild, scattered across Hyrule like fragments of a shattered mirror, show us Zelda's growing desperation. She knows the prophecy. She knows what's coming. And she knows that if her power doesn't awaken, everything will fall. She tries everything. She goes to every sacred spring. She prays until her knees are bleeding from kneeling on stone. She studies the ancient technology, hoping to find a mechanical solution to a spiritual problem. She pushes herself to the point of collapse, refusing to give up, refusing to accept that maybe, possibly, she is not worthy of the power her bloodline promises. And Link watches, silent, patient, always there, a constant reminder of the destiny she cannot grasp. The moment her power finally awakens is the worst moment of her life. Calamity Ganon returns on the day they visit the Spring of Wisdom atop Mount Lanayru. Zelda has prayed one final time, pouring everything she has into that last desperate plea, and nothing happens. The power does not awaken. She is ready to give up, ready to accept that she has failed. Then they see it in the distance. Hyrule Castle erupting with malice, dark energy tearing the sky. Calamity Ganon emerging from beneath the ground where it was sealed 10,000 years ago. The champions rush to their divine beasts. Link draws the Master Sword. The battle begins. And it goes terribly, catastrophically wrong. Ganon has learned from its previous defeat. It doesn't just attack head-on. Instead, it takes control of the very weapons Hyrule prepared to fight it. The Guardians, those ancient machines excavated with such hope, turn their laser sights on the people they were meant to protect. The divine beasts, piloted by the champions, become prisons. Inside each one, a blight is born, a concentrated fragment of Ganon's malice designed specifically to kill the champion piloting that beast. Mipha dies in Va Ruta, Daruk in Va Rudania, Rivali in Va Medo, Urbosa in Va Naboris. The champions, Zelda's friends, the people she laughed with and confided in, are killed one by one, and their divine beasts become weapons aimed at Hyrule instead of defenses. Link and Zelda flee. They run from an army of corrupted guardians, machines that should protect them now hunting them with mechanical efficiency. Link fights. He fights with everything he has, destroying guardian after guardian, protecting Zelda as she runs. But there are too many. Even the hero has limits. Even courage can be overwhelmed. In a field near Fort Hateno, surrounded by broken guardians, Link finally falls. He collapses, mortally wounded, barely alive. And Zelda, watching the boy who was always strong enough finally fail, feels something break inside her. She steps between Link and the approaching guardians. She has no weapon, no plan, just the desperate need to protect the one person who never stopped protecting her, even when she resented him for it. She raises her hand, and light explodes from her palm. Pure, golden light that stops the guardians in their tracks, destroys them, purges them of Ganon's corruption. The power she spent her entire life praying for finally awakens in the moment she forgets about herself completely. In the moment she acts not as the princess seeking power, but as a person desperate to save someone she cares about. On the back of her hand, the Triforce glows, all three pieces unified in her. Not just wisdom, but courage and power as well. She has become, in that instant, the vessel for the complete sacred relic, the inheritor of everything the goddesses left behind. But it's too late. The champions are dead. Hyrule Castle is overrun. The kingdom has fallen. And Link is dying in her arms. She makes a choice. She sends Link to the Shrine of Resurrection, an ancient Sheikah facility designed to heal fatal wounds through century-long stasis. He will sleep for 100 years, but he will live. His body will heal. His memories will be fragmented, damaged by the trauma of near death, but he will survive. And Zelda goes to face Calamity Ganon alone. She cannot defeat it. She knows she cannot. The sealing power she just awakened is not strong enough to destroy Ganon, only to contain it. So that is what she does. She walks into Hyrule Castle, into the heart of the darkness, and she uses her power to create a seal, a barrier, a prison of light that traps Ganon inside the castle, preventing it from emerging to finish destroying Hyrule. And then she waits. 100 years. Most Zelda games, when they involve Link sleeping, or sealed, or traveling through time, give Zelda a break from consciousness. She might be hidden away, or crystallized, or simply living her life in a different time. But Breath of the Wild is explicit. Zelda is aware for the entire 100 years. She is actively, consciously holding back Calamity Ganon through constant effort of will. Imagine that. Imagine being locked in a single moment of desperate struggle for a century. Imagine holding back a force of pure evil, feeling it push against your light, feeling your power slowly drain, knowing that you cannot falter for even a moment, or everything you've protected will be destroyed. She cannot sleep, cannot rest, cannot think about anything except maintaining the seal. She is conscious, but cannot interact with the world. She can send out telepathic messages, can reach out to Link when he awakens, but she cannot leave, cannot help, cannot do anything except hold the line and hope. That Link succeeds. 100 years is long enough to watch the world change completely. Hyrule goes from a thriving kingdom to a ruined wilderness. The castle town is destroyed. The survivors flee to the far corners of the land, establishing small settlements like Hateno and Kakariko. The Koroks spread across Hyrule, waiting. The memories of what happened fade. Old people who remember the calamity die, and their children grow up hearing stories that seem like myths. People forget Zelda. They know her name vaguely, know that there was a princess once, but she becomes legend, a ghost story. The voice that some travelers swear they hear on the wind, calling out, warning them, but which no one can quite explain. And she remembers them. All of them. She remembers the faces of the people who died defending the castle. She remembers the champions and their dreams. She remembers Link as he was before the Shrine of Resurrection, when he was whole and strong and spoke with his eyes instead of words. She remembers every moment of the kingdom's fall with perfect, terrible clarity. When Link finally awakens after 100 years, he has no memory of any of this. The Shrine of Resurrection healed his body, but couldn't fully heal his mind. His memories are shattered, scattered across Hyrule in locations that hold significance, waiting to be triggered. He wakes up confused, disoriented, with only the vaguest sense that something important is happening. Zelda's voice reaches him. She doesn't explain everything. She can't. Her power is failing. After 100 years, even divine light grows thin. She tells him what he needs to know, that Ganon is awakening again, that he must stop it, that he is the hero Hyrule needs. But she cannot tell him what she has endured. She cannot explain what it means to hold darkness at bay for a century while watching the world forget you exist. She cannot share the burden of her memories because he has no framework to understand them. He doesn't remember her, doesn't remember the champions, doesn't remember the fall of the kingdom or the desperation in her eyes when her power finally awakened too late. As Link travels across Hyrule, he slowly pieces together the past through recovered memories. He visits locations captured in photographs on the Sheikah slate, and images flash through his mind. Fragments of what was, glimpses of who he used to be. He sees Zelda studying Guardians, fascinated by their mechanical design, frustrated by his silent presence. He sees her at sacred springs, praying desperately. He sees her with the champions, laughing and planning and full of hope. He sees the moment the calamity struck, the moment everything fell apart, the moment she finally awakened her power while holding his dying body. Each memory he recovers brings him closer to understanding what was lost. But even with all the memories restored, he cannot understand what Zelda experienced. He slept through the 100 years. She endured them. He forgot everything and was granted the gift of a fresh start. She remembered everything and carried the weight of a century alone. When Link finally enters Hyrule Castle, when he fights through the Guardians and the Blights and all the accumulated corruption of 100 years, when he faces Calamity Ganon in its throne room, Zelda is there, but not there. She is holding the seal, keeping Ganon contained just long enough for Link to arrive, her power flickering like a candle in a storm, nearly exhausted after a century of constant burn. The fight against Calamity Ganon is brutal. This is Ganon in its purest form, not Ganondorf the man, but the incarnation of demonic hatred itself, all tactics and personality burned away, leaving only the desire to destroy. Link fights it in the throne room, and when it seems defeated, Ganon transforms one final time, becoming Dark Beast Ganon, a massive boar-like creature that attempts to escape across Hyrule Field. Zelda's voice reaches Link one last time. She gives him the Bow of Light, an artifact of pure sacred energy, and together, finally together after 100 years of separation, they defeat the beast. Link's arrows strike Ganon's weak points, and Zelda's sealing power, channeled through those arrows, finally purges the darkness completely. Ganon dissolves. The malice drains from Hyrule Castle. The blood-red sky clears, replaced by gentle sunset light. And Zelda, freed from her century-long vigil, finally emerges from the castle. She finds Link in the field. She looks at him, this person who gave everything to protect her, who spent 100 years in healing sleep, who fought through a broken kingdom to save her. And she asks him, with desperate hope and terrible fear, "Do you really remember me?" Because that is the question that matters. After everything she has endured, after 100 years of remembering, the greatest fear is that she is alone in those memories. That Link, even with his memories partially restored, doesn't truly remember her the way she remembers him. That she has carried this burden of witness alone and will continue to carry it alone. If you collect all the memories before facing Ganon, you get a small additional scene. Link and Zelda stand together, looking out over Hyrule. She talks about what comes next, going to Zora's domain to see Vah Ruta, giving King Dorephan closure about Mipha's death, beginning the long work of rebuilding. She mentions that she can no longer hear the voice inside the Master Sword. Phi, the spirit of the blade, has gone silent, perhaps because Zelda's power is exhausted, perhaps because her role is fulfilled. And then she says something quietly devastating, that even though they defeated Ganon, she knows there is still so much work to be done. The kingdom must be rebuilt. The divine beasts must be laid to rest. The people must be given hope. The memories of what was lost must be honored. She remembers all of it. The burden doesn't end with Ganon's defeat. If anything, it grows heavier, because now she must remember on behalf of everyone who died, everyone who was lost, everyone who fought and failed. She is the keeper of their memory, the last witness to the kingdom that fell. And Link, standing beside her, carries what memories he could recover. But they are fragmented, incomplete, missing pieces. He remembers moments, but not the weight of them. He knows intellectually that the champions were his friends, but he didn't experience their friendship the way Zelda did. He knows that Hyrule fell, but he was asleep when it happened, was spared the sight of its slow decline. He forgets what he never fully knew. She remembers what she can never forget. 100 years, conscious for every moment, holding back darkness while the world moved on, watching from inside her prison of light as Hyrule transformed from a kingdom into a legend, carrying the memory of every person who believed in her, every champion who fought, every citizen who died. That is the burden of wisdom in Breath of the Wild, not just power or knowledge, but witness. Being the one who saw everything, who experienced every moment, who cannot let go because there is no one else left to remember. Tears of the Kingdom, the dragon's eternal memory. If Breath of the Wild showed us Zelda enduring a century of conscious awareness, Tears of the Kingdom takes that concept and magnifies it to an almost incomprehensible scale. This is the story of Zelda becoming an immortal dragon, of carrying a memory across thousands of years, of sacrificing not just her body or her life, but her very sense of self for the sake of a sword, and a hope and a future she will never see. Our story begins shortly after Breath of the Wild's conclusion. Zelda and Link are investigating beneath Hyrule Castle, following strange energy readings that suggest something ancient is hidden there. They discover a chamber, vast and dark, with a mummified corpse held in place by a spectral arm glowing with strange power. And when they approach, when the seal weakens just enough, the corpse awakens. This is Ganondorf. Not Calamity Ganon, the mindless force of hatred, but Ganondorf, the Gerudo King, the man who became a demon, preserved through eons by his own malice and the seal that prevented his complete destruction. He has been waiting, trapped but conscious, for thousands of years, and when the seal breaks, he wastes no time. He attacks. The gloom from his body withers Link's arm, destroying his flesh, and the Master Sword shatters like glass against Ganondorf's power. Zelda is caught by a strange magic, clutching a stone that glows with golden light, and in a flash of temporal energy, she vanishes. Link barely survives. He wakes in the sky, on islands that float above Hyrule, his arm replaced by the ancient prosthetic that once sealed Ganondorf, now fused to his flesh. And Zelda is nowhere to be found. She has been sent back in time. Thousands of years back, to the founding of Hyrule itself, to the age of King Rauru and Queen Sonia, the first rulers of the kingdom. This is long before the events of Skyward Sword from the perspective of Hyrule's establishment, though the timeline is complex and layered. What matters is that Zelda finds herself in an era so ancient that even legends have forgotten it. She meets Rauru, who is one of the Zonai, an ancient race of powerful beings. She meets Sonia, who carries the power of time, one of the sacred stones. And she realizes, slowly and with growing horror, that the stone she picked up in the present, the stone that sent her here, is also a secret stone, an artifact that amplifies the wielder's innate power. Zelda tries to find a way home. She consults with Mineru, Rauru's sister, a brilliant researcher who understands the nature of the secret stones better than anyone. But there is no way to travel forward through time without tremendous power, power that Zelda doesn't possess. Her own abilities are connected to the Triforce, to sealing light, but not to manipulating the flow of time itself. Mineru mentions, almost casually, a forbidden act called draconification. If someone swallows their secret stone, they become an immortal dragon, blessed with eternal life. But there is a cost. They lose themselves. Their sense of identity, their memories, their personality, all of it dissolves into pure draconic instinct. They become immortal, but at the price of no longer being truly alive. It's meant to be a warning, a cautionary tale about the danger of seeking immortality. But for Zelda, hearing about a way to exist for thousands of years, a seed of desperate hope plants itself. She stays in the past. She befriends Rauru and Sonia, learning about her own heritage in the process. Sonia teaches her to use her time powers, abilities that Zelda inherited but never understood. She becomes close to these ancient rulers, seeing in them the best of what Hyrule could be: wise, just, powerful, but not domineering. She tries to warn them about Ganondorf, who is already plotting his rise to power in this era, already manipulating events to seize a secret stone for himself. But warnings can only do so much. Ganondorf kills Sonia in a moment of shocking brutality, stealing her secret stone and transforming himself into the Demon King, an immortal being of godlike power fueled by malice and ambition. He raises an army of monsters. He covers the land in gloom. He begins what will be remembered as the Imprisoning War, a conflict that nearly destroys the ancient kingdom. Rauru fights back, gathering sages from among the different races: Goron, Zora, Rito, Gerudo. Together they face Ganondorf in battle, but even the combined might of the sages is not enough. They cannot kill him. He has made himself too powerful, too immortal. So Rauru makes the ultimate sacrifice. He uses his power to seal Ganondorf, trapping the Demon King in a prison of light that will last for millennia. But maintaining this seal requires Rauru to remain with Ganondorf, to pour his life force constantly into the barrier, to essentially die slowly over thousands of years, just to keep evil contained. And in making this sacrifice, Rauru leaves behind a prophecy. He tells the sages that one day, a hero will come who wields the sword that seals the darkness. That hero will finish what they started, will destroy Ganondorf completely. The sages must pass down their knowledge, must prepare their descendants for that day. Zelda knows who that hero is. Link. Her Link, in the future she came from. He is the one who will face Ganondorf. He is the one who will end this cycle. But Link's Master Sword is broken. It was shattered by Ganondorf in the present, reduced to shards of sacred steel. And without the Master Sword, Link cannot win. As Zelda processes this realization, another miracle occurs. Through the same temporal magic that brought her to the past, the broken Master Sword appears before her. Link, in the present, has used his own time powers to send the sword back, hoping that maybe, somehow, it can be repaired in the past and returned to him. The sword is broken beyond conventional repair. The sacred light that once filled it has dimmed. It would take centuries, perhaps millennia, for the blade to heal itself, even with divine intervention. But Zelda understands something that no one else does. She has both time and sacred light. If she can bathe the Master Sword in her divine power for thousands of years, it will heal. It will become whole. It will be strong enough to face Ganondorf. But there is no way for a mortal to live thousands of years. Even with magic, even with divine blood, Zelda's lifespan is measured in decades, not epochs, unless she chooses draconification. Unless she swallows her secret stone and becomes something immortal, something that can exist across ages. She speaks to Mineru about this, and Mineru is horrified. She begs Zelda not to do it. She explains what will be lost. Memories, identity, selfhood, everything that makes Zelda who she is. She will become a dragon, yes, but she will not be Zelda anymore. She will be a creature of instinct, mindless, eternal, unable to recognize friends or remember her purpose beyond the base drive to protect what she holds. Zelda understands all of this. She knows what she will lose, but she also knows that Link needs the Master Sword, that without it, Ganondorf will win. That the future of Hyrule depends on this choice, so she makes it. In a scene of heartbreaking quiet, Zelda goes to the Temple of Time. She gives her Purapad, the Sheikah Slate's successor, to a construct, with instructions to pass it to Link when he arrives in this era. She takes the broken Master Sword in her hands. She looks at it one last time with human eyes, and then, with tears streaming down her face, the tears that will later fall across Hyrule as dragon tears, memories made manifest, she swallows her secret stone. Light erupts from her. Her body transforms, elongating, growing scales and wings and claws. She rises into the sky as a massive dragon, white and gold and beautiful and alien. The Master Sword is embedded in her head, held there by the horns that grow from her draconic skull. She roars once, a sound of sorrow and acceptance and farewell, and then she vanishes into the clouds. And there she remains, for thousands of years, flying through the skies of ancient Hyrule, watching civilizations rise and fall beneath her, carrying the Master Sword through epochs and ages, bathing it in her divine light slowly, patiently, over a span of time so vast that human minds cannot properly comprehend it. According to the lore, draconification means losing yourself, becoming immortal but mindless. A creature of pure instinct with no memories, no personality, no sense of who you once were. But the dragon tears suggest something different. Throughout Tears of the Kingdom, Link can find geoglyphs scattered across Hyrule, massive patterns etched into the land itself. At the center of each one is a pool of water glowing with golden light, a dragon's tear. When Link touches these tears, he experiences Zelda's memories from the past, seeing what she saw, learning what she learned. These memories are coherent. They follow a narrative. They show Zelda's journey through the past with remarkable clarity and detail. And they are left intentionally, dropped at specific locations, designed to tell Link a story when he finds them. If Zelda had truly lost her mind, lost all sense of self, she could not have done this. Some spark of awareness must have remained. Some fragment of her consciousness, buried deep within the dragon's instincts, retained enough purpose to leave these tears, to guide Link, to help him understand. Or perhaps the tears are not left intentionally, but are simply the memories leaking out, the weight of consciousness too great to be fully suppressed even by draconic transformation. Perhaps Zelda's sense of self is so strong, her memories so vital, that they cannot be completely erased. Perhaps she exists in some half-aware state, neither fully present nor fully gone, suspended in an eternal twilight of dragon mind, where human thoughts surface like fish breaking the surface of a deep ocean. We cannot know for certain. The game leaves this ambiguous, and perhaps that ambiguity is the most horrifying thing. Zelda might be completely gone, her mind extinguished, only the most basic drive to protect the Master Sword remaining. Or she might be partially aware, trapped in a body that doesn't respond to her will, watching thousands of years pass with a fractured consciousness that can neither fully think nor fully rest. In the present day, when Link begins his new adventure, the Light Dragon is a constant presence in the skies above Hyrule. She flies in patterns, circling regions, occasionally diving low enough that Link can see her clearly. She is beautiful and terrible and tragic. This creature, who was once a princess, who was once his friend, who was once human. And Link doesn't know. For most of the game, he searches for Zelda, chasing reports of her appearing in various locations, following leads that always turn out to be false. There are statues of her. There are puppet decoys created by Ganondorf's magic. There are memories and legends and stories. But Zelda herself is absent. Until Link collects all the dragon tears, until he sees all the memories, until he witnesses the final one, where Zelda swallows the stone and transforms. And in that moment, he understands the full, crushing weight of what she has done. She chose to stop existing as herself so that he could have a weapon. She traded her identity, her future, her entire sense of being for a sword. She saved him by erasing herself. When Link finally faces Ganondorf in the depths beneath Hyrule Castle, when the Demon King transforms himself into a dragon in a final desperate attempt at power, the Light Dragon intervenes. She dives from the sky, catching Link before he falls, placing him gently on her back. And together, Dragon Princess and Hero, they face Dragon Demon in the skies above Hyrule. It's an impossible battle. Ganondorf's dragon form is monstrous, diseased, corrupted by malice. But the Light Dragon is grace itself, flying with ancient memory even if consciousness is gone, supporting Link as he strikes at Ganondorf again and again. She remembers, in whatever way dragons remember, that this person on her back is important, that he must be protected, that her purpose, the purpose she has carried for thousands of years, is finally being fulfilled. When Link drives the Master Sword, the sword she carried, the sword she healed, the sword that represents everything she sacrificed, through the secret stone in Ganondorf's skull, the Demon King finally dies. Truly dies. His dragon form dissolves. The gloom covering Hyrule lifts. The sky clears, and Link is falling, plummeting toward the earth far below, too exhausted to grab onto anything, ready to die having completed his quest. The Light Dragon catches him. She holds him gently in her claws, this massive creature cradling a single human with impossible care. And as she does, something remarkable happens. The spirits of Rauru and Sonia appear. They reach out through time itself, placing their hands on Link's arm, the arm that carries Rauru's power. Golden light surges through Link, and he reaches out to touch the Light Dragon. Time magic and light magic combine, flowing from the hero into the dragon, and slowly, impossibly, the transformation begins to reverse. The dragon's form shrinks, scales become skin, wings dissolve into light. The massive creature becomes smaller, more human-shaped, until finally, cradled in Link's arms as they fall through the sky, there is Zelda. Not a dragon, not a legend, just a young woman, unconscious but breathing, returned to her true form by a miracle that should not have been possible. They fall together. But Zelda's dragon can fly, or rather, the remnant of her dragon form, the echo of what she was, manifests one last time to catch them both, to set them gently on the ground before fading away forever. Zelda wakes. Link is there, holding her, and the first thing she does is ask if he's all right, if he's hurt, if the Master Sword reached him in time. Her first thoughts are for him, even after thousands of years as a dragon, even after sacrificing everything. And she doesn't remember most of it. In the final scene, when she visits Riju in Gerudo Town, Zelda admits that she doesn't really remember her time as a dragon. It's a blur, a dream, something that happened to her but didn't leave clear memories. The dragon mind protected her from the full weight of that existence, and in being restored, she lost even the fragmented awareness she might have had. So Link remembers what she experienced, having seen it in the dragon tears. But Zelda does not fully remember being the dragon. She knows intellectually what she did. The memories show her choosing draconification. But the actual experience of thousands of years is gone, mercifully lost. Once again, Link knows something Zelda has forgotten, but only because Zelda preserved those memories for him. She carried them as tears, as fragments of light containing her story, and scattered them across Hyrule so he would understand. Even as a dragon, even with her mind dissolved, she found a way to remember for him. And now she is restored, but the memory of being a dragon is incomplete. She has gaps, spaces where her consciousness should have been, but wasn't. She saved the world, and cannot fully recall doing so. This is perhaps the most profound expression of the theme we've been tracing. Zelda sacrificed her memory itself. She chose to become something that could not remember, so that Link could have what he needed. And in being restored, she lost even the memory of that sacrifice, carrying only the knowledge that it happened, not the experience of it. She forgot so that he could defeat evil. She remembered in the only way a dragon could remember, through tears of light. And now she exists with a gap in her life thousands of years wide, a space where she should have been, but wasn't. A sacrifice so complete that even the memory of making it is incomplete. Link forgets what he was before the Shrine of Resurrection. But Zelda lost something greater. She lost thousands of years of existence, choosing to not remember, choosing to become something that cannot carry memory the way humans do, all for the sake of a sword and a hope and a future where she might not exist at all. And that, ultimately, is the deepest burden of wisdom. Not just remembering when others forget, but sometimes choosing not to remember at all, choosing to lose yourself so that others can be saved. Bearing the absence of memory, so that memory itself can continue. The pattern across ages, what Link never keeps. We have walked through ages now, through timelines branching and converging, through kingdoms drowned and twilight covered and ruined and restored. We have seen Zelda in her many forms, goddess reborn, princess in hiding, pirate captain, prisoner, dragon. And through it all, one pattern emerges with crystalline clarity. Link forgets. Zelda remembers. But it is not as simple as that statement makes it seem. The forgetting and the remembering take many forms, serve many purposes, and create a dynamic that is essential to understanding not just these two characters, but the very nature of heroism and wisdom as the legend defines them. Let us examine what Link never keeps across the ages. First and most obviously, Link's personal memories do not carry forward between incarnations. Each Link is born fresh, with no knowledge of previous heroes who bore his name and spirit. The hero of time does not remember the battles fought by the hero of the sky. The hero of winds has no recollection of the hero of time's struggle. The hero of the wild does not carry forward the memories of the hero of twilight. This is by design. The spirit of the hero is reborn, but the person is always new. Link is not a single soul reincarnating with cumulative knowledge. He is a mantle that different people wear, a role that different individuals step into, each bringing their own personality and context to the part they must play. This freshness is Link's strength. He approaches each incarnation of evil without the weight of previous failures. He doesn't carry trauma from past defeats. He doesn't second-guess himself because an earlier version of him tried something similar and it didn't work. He is always beginning, always discovering, always learning for the first time. But it is also a vulnerability. Link cannot benefit from the accumulated experience of his predecessors. He must learn the same lessons again and again. He must discover the same truths. He must forge the same bonds and make the same sacrifices, never building on what came before because he has no access to what came before. Zelda, by contrast, carries forward, not always perfectly, not always completely. But there is continuity in her line that does not exist in Link's. She is always of the royal family of Hyrule, always connected by blood to that first Zelda who was Hylia reborn. Even in Wind Waker, where she is raised as Tetra the Pirate, she still carries the bloodline, still inherits the Triforce of Wisdom, still has the capacity to remember things that Link cannot access. This continuity means that while each Zelda is also a unique person, there is something that passes down through the line. Sometimes it is literal inherited memory, as in Skyward Sword, where Zelda awakens to Hylia's knowledge. Sometimes it is cultural memory, stories and warnings passed from mother to daughter. Sometimes it is simply the weight of expectation, the understanding that she carries a divine responsibility whether she wants it or not. But beyond the differences between incarnations, there is another level to this pattern. Even within a single adventure, Link often forgets while Zelda remembers. In Ocarina of Time, Link loses 7 years. Zelda lives through them. He forgets his child self in a way. He has the memories, but not the experience, not the growth, not the slow, painful accumulation of time passing. She ages normally, experiences every day, carries the weight of those years forward. When they reunite, he is physiologically adult, but psychologically still partially the child who drew the sword. She has grown up the hard way. In Breath of the Wild, Link loses all his memories to the Shrine of Resurrection's healing process. Zelda remembers every moment of the 100 years she spent containing Ganon. He has to relearn who he was through scattered fragments. She never forgot, never had the luxury of forgetting, had to remain conscious and aware and alert for a century while he slept in healing stasis. In Tears of the Kingdom, Link loses a few days or weeks, the time between Ganondorf's awakening and his recovery in the Sky Islands. But Zelda loses thousands of years, swallowed by draconification, her human memories dissolved into something that can barely be called consciousness. And yet, even in that state, she leaves memories for Link to find. She remembers, in the only way a dragon can remember, through tears of light that contain her story. This pattern of Link forgetting or losing time while Zelda experiences it fully is not accidental. It serves a purpose in the narrative structure of the legend. Link must be able to move forward unburdened. His role is to be the active agent, the one who quests and fights and solves puzzles and faces evil directly. If he carried the full weight of everything that has happened, if he remembered every loss and failure and sacrifice, he would be crushed beneath it. The burden would paralyze him. So he forgets. Or he never knew. Or he experiences things in compressed time that removes the sting of waiting. His trauma is combat trauma, the kind that comes from action. He is hurt by what he does and sees, but not by what he waits through or endures passively. Zelda's role is different. She must bear witness. She must carry forward the knowledge of what has been lost, what has been sacrificed, what has been tried before. She is the continuity, the thread that connects past to present to future. She remembers so that the kingdom does not forget its history, so that the warnings of the past are not lost, so that when evil returns, there is someone who knows how to recognize it. This is the burden of wisdom, not just intelligence or magical power, but memory. Deep, clear, unforgetting memory that holds on to truth even when that truth is painful. Wisdom is knowing, and knowing requires remembering, and remembering is often the heaviest weight to carry. Consider what each Zelda remembers that her Link does not. The Zelda of Skyward Sword remembers being Hylia, remembers the battles of ancient days, remembers making choices that shaped the entire cycle before she was even born a Zelda. Link only knows what happened after he drew the goddess sword. The Zelda of Ocarina of Time remembers 7 years of Hyrule's fall, remembers watching her kingdom die slowly, remembers the guilt of their failed plan. Link has gaps where those years should be. The Zelda of Wind Waker is freed from memory, but King Daphne's remembers centuries, remembers old Hyrule so clearly that he is trapped by that memory until he consciously releases it. The Zelda of Twilight Princess remembers surrendering, remembers choosing to give up, remembers dying for Midna. Link was unconscious for most of those hours, trapped in wolf form, unable to witness what she endured. The Zelda of Breath of the Wild remembers a century of holding back darkness, remembers the kingdom's slow transformation from thriving civilization to ruined wilderness. Link slept through it all and wakes with no memory of who he was before. The Zelda of Tears of the Kingdom remembers the ancient past, remembers Rauru and Sonia, remembers making the choice to become a dragon. Link only learns these things through the memories she left behind. In every case, there is asymmetry. Zelda carries a burden of knowledge that Link cannot share. And this asymmetry is necessary, is fundamental to how the legend works. If both Link and Zelda carried the full weight of memory, if both experienced time in the same way, if both held on to everything, the balance would be wrong. The legend would become something else. It would be two people drowning in the past together, unable to move forward because they cannot set down what they have carried. But if Link forgets and Zelda remembers, if one can move forward unburdened while the other maintains the continuity, then the system works. Progress can happen. Evil can be fought. The kingdom can survive because there is both action and wisdom, both courage to face the present and memory to learn from the past. This is why, across all the games, across all the timelines, the fundamental dynamic remains the same. Link is always the one who acts. Zelda is always the one who knows. He forgets or never knew. She remembers. And in that remembering, she bears a burden that he is spared from carrying. Some might see this as unfair. Why should Zelda have to carry the heavier emotional weight? Why should she suffer through time while Link gets to sleep through it or avoid it entirely? Why does wisdom mean suffering while courage gets to be celebrated? But the legend does not see it as unfair. It sees it as necessary. These are complementary roles, not competitive ones. Link needs to forget so he can have the courage to act. Zelda needs to remember so she can have the wisdom to guide. Neither could do the other's job. Neither should have to. And there is a deeper truth here, one that speaks to something fundamental about how memory and identity work. Those who forget are granted the gift of new beginnings. Those who remember are granted the gift of understanding. Both are needed. Both are valuable. Both are, in their own way, burdens and blessings intertwined. Link gets to begin fresh each time, but he loses the connection to who he was, loses the accumulation of experience that might make future battles easier. Zelda maintains that connection, keeps that accumulation, but has to carry the weight of everything she has witnessed. Neither path is easy. Neither path is without cost. The legend simply acknowledges that different roles require different relationships with memory, and that the interplay between forgetting and remembering is what allows the cycle to continue without collapsing under its own weight. So Link forgets, and in forgetting, he remains capable of hope. Zelda remembers, and in remembering, she remains capable of wisdom. And together, through this asymmetry, they save the world again and again, each bearing a burden the other cannot carry, each providing what the other cannot give. The wisdom of remembering, the courage of forgetting. We have reached the end of our journey through time and memory. We have seen Zelda in her many forms, carrying burdens that Link never knows, enduring trials that happen in the spaces between action, bearing witness when others sleep or forget or simply move forward unburdened. But now, as we prepare to close this meditation, we must ask perhaps the most important question: why? Why is it structured this way? What does it mean that the legend demands this particular asymmetry, this specific division of burdens? The answer, I think, lies in understanding what wisdom really means in the context of the Legend of Zelda. Wisdom, as personified by Zelda and the Triforce of Wisdom, is not merely intelligence or knowledge or the ability to solve puzzles. Those things are part of it, certainly. But the truest expression of wisdom in this legend is something deeper and more difficult: the ability to bear the weight of knowledge across time, the ability to remember what must not be forgotten, even when remembering causes pain. Wisdom is the long view, the understanding that actions have consequences that ripple across ages, the knowledge that today's choices will echo into tomorrow and the day after and the century after, and that someone must carry forward the memory of those choices so that future generations can learn from them. This is why Zelda, in nearly every incarnation, is associated with time in some way. In Ocarina of Time, she sends Link back through time. In Wind Waker, she is connected to a kingdom preserved beneath the waves, frozen in time. In Twilight Princess, she chooses to wait, to endure time rather than fight against it. In Breath of the Wild, she spends 100 years, conscious inside a prison of her own creation. In Tears of the Kingdom, she travels backward through time and then forward as a dragon, experiencing thousands of years in a state between existence and absence. Time and memory are inseparable. To remember is to carry the past into the present. To have wisdom is to understand that the past matters, that it informs the present, that ignoring it leads to repeating mistakes. But if everyone carried this burden equally, if everyone remembered everything with perfect clarity, if no one was allowed to forget or start fresh, the world would become paralyzed. There would be no courage to move forward because every action would be weighed down by the memory of every previous failure. There would be no hope because hope requires some degree of ignorance, some ability to see the present as separate from the past, to believe that this time might be different. This is where Link's role becomes essential. Link embodies courage, But courage is not the absence of fear or the willingness to fight recklessly. True courage, as the legend defines it, is the ability to act despite uncertainty, to move forward even when you don't know if you'll succeed, to hope even when history suggests that hope is foolish. And the way Link maintains this courage is through a kind of necessary forgetting. Not forgetting everything, not being ignorant of all consequences, but forgetting enough that he can still act. Forgetting the accumulated trauma of previous incarnations. Forgetting the years he wasn't present for. Forgetting the full weight of what Zelda has endured on his behalf. If Link remembered everything Zelda remembers, if he carried the full burden of witness that she carries, he could not be the hero. The weight would crush the ability to act. The knowledge of how many times evil has returned, how many times kingdoms have fallen, how many times heroes have failed, would make it nearly impossible to believe that this time, his time, could be different. So Zelda remembers for both of them. She carries the weight of history, the knowledge of failures and sacrifices, the understanding of what the cycle demands, and she uses that wisdom to guide Link, to support him, to provide the context he needs without overwhelming him with the full truth. This is an act of profound love, though the legend rarely frames it as such. To remember on behalf of someone else, to carry a burden so they don't have to endure conscious awareness while they sleep, or forget, or simply move forward unburdened, is an act of extraordinary sacrifice. And it is specifically called wisdom, because wisdom understands that this sacrifice is necessary. Wisdom knows that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you care about is to carry their share of the pain, to bear witness so they don't have to remember so they can afford to forget. But there is another side to this dynamic, one that is equally important, the wisdom of knowing when to let go. We saw this most clearly in Wind Waker, where King Daphne's character arc is about learning that memory can become a prison. He clung to his memories of old Hyrule so tightly that he could not imagine a future that wasn't about restoration. He remembered so completely that he forgot how to hope for something new. His final act of wisdom was to release his grip on the past, to wish for Hyrule to be washed away completely, to consciously choose to let the memory die so that the future could be born. And in doing so, he freed Tetra from the burden of being Zelda, allowed her to remain a pirate captain sailing toward new horizons rather than a princess chained to a drowned kingdom's ghost. This suggests that wisdom is not just about remembering, but about knowing what to remember and how to remember it. Memory must serve the present and the future, not imprison them. Wisdom means understanding that while the past must be honored and learned from, it must not be allowed to dictate everything, must not prevent new possibilities from emerging. And perhaps this is why, in the most recent games, we see Zelda's relationship with memory becoming more complex. In Breath of the Wild, she spends a century remembering, holding on to consciousness, maintaining the seal through sheer will. But when Link awakens, when he has lost his memories, she doesn't force them on him. She lets him discover them at his own pace, lets him choose which memories to recover and which to leave behind. She trusts him to be the hero even without remembering everything about who he was. In Tears of the Kingdom, she makes the ultimate sacrifice of memory itself, choosing to become something that cannot remember in the human way. And when she is restored, she doesn't fully remember those thousands of years. The dragon time is mostly gone, a mercy that spares her from the full weight of that impossible existence. This suggests an evolution in how the legend thinks about memory and forgetting. Earlier games presented it as a simple binary. Zelda remembers, Link forgets, and this is how it must be. But the more recent games suggest something more nuanced, that there is wisdom in forgetting as well as remembering, that sometimes letting go of memory is necessary, that the burden of perfect recall might be too heavy for anyone to carry. Perhaps the true wisdom, then, is not in remembering everything, but in remembering what matters and releasing what doesn't. In holding on to the lessons of the past without being imprisoned by the past itself. In being willing to bear witness to suffering without being destroyed by that witness. And perhaps Link's courage is not despite his forgetting, but because of it. Perhaps the ability to forget, to start fresh, to approach each challenge without the weight of previous failures, is itself a kind of courage. The courage to hope. The courage to believe in new beginnings. The courage to act as though this time might actually be different, even though history suggests it won't be. Together, wisdom and courage create a balance. Zelda's remembering provides context, prevents the same mistakes from being repeated, maintains the continuity that allows civilization to persist. Link's forgetting provides hope, enables action, creates the space for new solutions to emerge, rather than being bound by the limitations of what has been tried before. Neither can exist without the other. Pure memory without the ability to forget would lead to paralysis. Pure forgetting without anyone to remember would lead to chaos, to repeating the same mistakes endlessly. But together, they create something sustainable, a cycle that can continue without collapsing, a legend that can be retold without losing its meaning. And so we return to where we began. Link forgets, and Zelda remembers. But now we understand that this is not a tragedy or an unfairness. It is a necessity, a complementary relationship where each person carries the burden they are capable of bearing, where each provides what the other cannot, where wisdom and courage work together to create something greater than either could achieve alone. Zelda bears the burden of memory so that Link can have the freedom to act. Link bears the burden of action so that Zelda's wisdom has a purpose, a direction, something to guide toward. And in this ancient dance between remembering and forgetting, between wisdom and courage, the kingdom of Hyrule endures. Not unchanged, not unscathed, but enduring nonetheless, because someone always remembers what must not be forgotten, and someone always has the courage to believe that the future can be different from the past. That is the burden of wisdom. That is the gift of forgetting. That is the legend. Thank you for drifting through this story with me tonight. If these quiet journeys through memory and legend have touched something in you, consider subscribing for more meditations on the worlds that shape us. Until next time, may your dreams be gentle, and may you carry only the memories that serve you well. Sleep well.